Hello and welcome to today's session here at my channel. Today will be about spec-driven development and AI unified process. So the reason why I came to this is I love coding with AI, as you might know by now. So it's really enjoyable, and for me it's really important to see what I developed and publish it to the world, basically. And that's really easy with Next.js or something like that. And I just deploy that to GitHub and have a GitHub action that deploys it to GitHub pages. And then I have a live website. And that's pretty cool. But in my normal day job, I am a Java developer. And Java applications are awesome, but you always need something running. And that's a bit of a problem because you can't just host it anywhere for free, like you can with Next.js, for example. So I always have this problem of how to easily deploy a Java application. And Vaadin makes that a bit easier because I can create a web application very easily, but still I have to deploy that somewhere. And that's why I wanted to talk to Simon Martinelli today, not only because of spec-driven development, but also for an easy deployment process. And we will go through that step by step today. Yeah, that's the one case I want to talk about, the deployment process, but also, of course, the spec-driven development. And I've had plenty of sessions where I have different systems of how to develop with AI, not just vibe coding, but a structural process where you get good applications where you know what they will do, basically. And spec-driven development, in my view so far, is a good approach to guide the AI in the direction where you want to have it. So yeah, thank you very much for joining. And as I said, today I have Simon Martinelli with me. He's a Java champion. He's been at JOOQ Switzerland for over 14 years now. He has his own company, Martinelli GmbH, GmbH, and he is certified in almost every Vaadin certification there is. So, hello, Simon.
Hey, Johannes. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a big pleasure to be in your channel today and to talk about my ideas.
Yes, thank you for being here. It's really an honor, and I'm really excited to see what you brought here today. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing software development for 31 years in the meantime. So I started in 1995 on IBM mainframe computers using COBOL back in the days. And around year 2000, I moved to the Java field that was popular then. So J2E came out in 1999, and companies, I was working for Swiss Railways back in the days, were moving to Java and application servers. So we had IBM mainframe, not IBM mainframe, IBM WebSphere as an application server back then. And we started doing software like Swiss Railways. I was in Archetype in the online ticketing shop for Swiss Railways in 2002. So that was the second online ticketing shop in Europe, at least, because I think Sweden was a few months before us. And we created the web shop. Then I did other projects for Swiss Railways, also with Java. And since 2009, I'm an independent consultant, so with my own company. And I'm working for many companies in Switzerland, from very big companies like insurance companies or railway companies, for example, or retailers, wholesales, and also finance industry. And on the other hand, I also work for very, very small companies where I'm building software, especially nowadays, because it's kind of possible to write software for a fraction of the money that you had to pay before. So that's maybe something that we can see today, that building software is cheaper in terms of programming, not in terms of running or in terms of what you told us before, but especially in creating the software, because you can maybe move some of the work for building the software to someone else, and you don't have to do that as a software engineer.
Yeah. Okay, cool, great. So we will go through, first of all, we will look into the spec-driven development, what that means to you and what that entails. Then we'll move over to the AI unified process, where you have a big diagram for us. And after explaining all of this, we can dive right into it and start implementing a little tool to organize meetings and workshops. But that is just a little idea. It's not, we don't have to go into production with that, but we want to deploy it today and make it available online. And we'll use Vaadin, Spring Boot, and JOOQ for this. Okay, so Simon, can you explain a little bit about spec-driven design to us?
Yeah, so the idea of spec-driven development is very old. I literally can't tell you how old it is, probably 25 years or maybe older. So if you go to Wikipedia, you will find spec-driven development as an entry which has nothing to do with AI. But for me, it was 2024 when I started using Windsurf back in the days for doing AI-driven development. In summer, I was building software for my sports club, and somehow this vibe coding style didn't work for me. So it was very hard to keep track. What did I do? Which features were missing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I heard about spec-driven development from Simon Maple. He's also Java champion. I know him for a pretty long time already, but he's currently working for a company called Tesla in London, and they did something like spec-driven development, and currently they do skill management. I don't know what exactly they do in spec-driven, actually. But what Simon wrote in the blog post that I read was, you have to define clearly the intent for AI, what you actually want to do. And I thought, hey, that's exactly the missing part. I cannot prompt. I have to write it down. And this reminds me of software development 30 years ago, where we created specs that then will be implemented. Now with Agile or with the Agile movement, not with the Agile ID, by the way, but how companies implemented Agile, mostly like this specification process somehow get lost. So we have an intent, or maybe a user story, and then this will be transformed into code. But with spec-driven, we have also a user story, for example, but then we create kind of a specification out of it, or we combine user stories to a use case, as we will see in my process, that will then be the specification for AI. Now, there are different flavors of spec-driven development. So my process is focusing on requirements-driven spec-driven development. That sounds a bit weird, but I'm focusing on the idea that the requirements engineers or the end users or the business people or the product owners or the business analysts, however who is involved in a project, can write those specs and also read the specs. And that's a contract between business and software. And we can directly use the specs that were written by the business people to generate code. Now, if you look at the spec-driven market, we have tools. We have Amazon Kiro, we have GitHub Spec Kit, we have the BMAT method, we have something called OpenSpec, and probably I forgot a lot of them because there are a lot of ideas how you could do spec-driven development. But those spec-driven development tools have a different flavor in terms of they're focusing on the software engineer, not on the whole development process. So that means we usually have kind of in the United States, they have something called the PRD. That's the product requirements document. I don't know if you ever heard that term.
I heard that in my last session the first time. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a kind of a document we called it in German, it was the Anforderungskatalog, so the requirements catalog probably, and that's probably similar. So
I love the word catalog because it means like it's a big folder with lots of documents in them.
It's a big thing, exactly. And now what they do, for example, I know Amazon Kiro very well, and they have the PRD, then they create the plan, how to implement that. And from that, they create specs and tasks, or the other way around. Doesn't matter so much. But the specs are not readable for the business people. That's more an instruction how to implement the code, right? So that's a bit of a difference in the process. And I'm not sure if this is sustainable, because sustainable to me means I have to say that I'm working in software modernization projects for 7 years or 8 years, maybe already. And there we always have the same problem. We don't have specs. So we don't have documentation of the software. So we have to kind of do the reverse engineering of the code before we can generate the code. So that's kind of a problem usually. And with these spec-driven tools, I don't think that they are sustainable because they work now, but I'm not sure if they work in 5 years, because AI will completely change, and then you may not even need such tools that we create currently. So that's why I'm focusing on the business side, and we will see that, how we do that.
So Simon, what is a specification for you? So I hear that there are several definitions for specification, and you would suggest that specifications should be less technical and more on the business side of things.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was thinking about this specification because when I started with spec-driven development, there were no tools actually. So IDs from Tesla, for example, but not really usable tools. And I was kind of thinking back in my software industry history, and I realized that we did specs, and we called that use case specifications. So use cases is something very old. That's from 1987, from a conference called Uppsala. This one was the object-oriented conference in Sweden. And a lot of great people were there. Ivar Jakobsson, for example, that is the creator of the use case specification or the use case modeling at all. Then we had Grady Booch. Grady Booch is one of the inventors of object-oriented development or object-oriented programming, so to say. And these guys back in then, we also had design by contract. That's something that was created then by, I can't remember exactly by which of these people, but that doesn't really matter. But they really laid the foundation for object-oriented programming. And then we had Unified Modeling Language, the UML. That's not so popular anymore, probably because people tried to use UML to generate code with these model-driven development tools in early 2000s. And so this kind of history somehow was lost, in my opinion. But I realized that these use case specifications are a very good fit. And as I said, it's a specification. So it has a defined format. So you have preconditions, postconditions, and then you have flows. So you have a main flow and you have alternative flows that are described. And this specification is always described from a point of view of the user of the system. So the user could be a human, or the user could be another system, for example. But these users are called actors in use cases, and they interact with your application. And so that means this can contain implementation detail in terms of you can add definition for the UI, for example. So if you do Figma designs or something, you could add that as additional documentation. You could add, for example, some diagrams that visualize some flows or something like that. And these all together form the specification. But the specification is not implementation detail. So we don't write there, create a Vaadin view, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe we have the information, we need a text field and a combo box, but that's neutral to the framework that we use. So it doesn't matter. So we just say, here you have a single entry field, and here you have a field where you can select some values. So that's maybe the level that we do that.
Yeah. So that's I imagine from a like project manager level of view, that's what the application should effectively do, not how it should do it. That's the specification in your model.
Exactly. And if you look in the future, this is also proven for safe or sustainable for modernization, because you can just use that and generate the new version of the application, because there are no details. So you can choose another data store, you can choose another UI framework, you could even remove the UI framework if you have some chat-based application maybe in the future. So that's very neutral to actually what the implementation could be of that.
Yeah. Okay, so the idea is of spec-driven development that you write down a specification or write it with help of AI probably, where your business cases, your use cases are described in whatever way. I guess something like plant UML or Mermaid would be perfectly viable for AI as well, because it can clearly read that and understand it without using a lot of tokens for image recognition. So you write that specification down, and then you effectively tell the AI to implement this with maybe some guidelines in terms of technical implementations. Like we said, we would use Vaadin, Spring Boot, and JOOQ. And then it goes on and implements that according to the specifications.
Yep, exactly. Right? So what you need additionally to that is, it's called harness. That means that's the tool setup that you have. So we need an agent, for example, or we need an agent for sure. We use Claude Code. We can enhance that with skills, with MCP server. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol for people who don't know that. It's kind of an API definition for AI. So we can have MCP servers that deliver documentation, for example. So you can search in the documentation, or the agent can search in the documentation and find examples or code snippets or stuff like that. And then we have guidelines somewhere. So usually you do some software architecture work and you say, okay, I want to have my application split into modules. The modules have packages. So the packages are organized in a layered way or in a hexagonal architecture. So all these definitions that you usually do. And all you add there as documentation helps AI to create code as you wish. So that means these forms, these guardrails, and the more guardrails you have, so I would say the more narrow your solution space will be, the better the result. So you have less hallucination because you just limit what AI can do or should do. And that's called also agentic engineering or harness engineering. So working on that. So that's kind of an iterative process in a project where you start to tune kind of your agent with skills and MCPs and guidelines and whatever documentation you may add to make sure that the agent produces the results that you want to have.
So back to this process, we have the specifications for the business logic in a file, but where do we put all these technical terms?
First of all, my process comes with some skills. So we have skills that are already there. If you look at Vaadin for example, they also created skills and MCP servers. So that comes from the tool vendor, so to say. I have customers. So for example, I'm working for an insurance company in Switzerland, a big one. They have over 1,000 developers. And there they are currently working on skills for their technology stack. So what they use Quarkus in the back end, Angular in the front end. But for both, they created their custom frameworks. So they have something on top of Quarkus that it's comparable to Spring Boot starters for the insurance company. They also have a design system for the UI components for Angular. And now they're creating MCP servers to get access to the documentation and skills for the agents that they know how to use the in-house frameworks, for example. So you add, so the difference between an MCP and skills is probably very simple. I would always use skills. Also, skills are simpler to use because that are just markdown files. So you put the markdown file, you can have that somewhere to share, but you can also put it in your local Git repo and check it in. And so all the teammates can use these skills. And there you can have templates, for example. You can even add scripts that will be executed when AI is using the skill. And MCP is more kind of an API. So as I said, if you have extensive documentation with hundreds of pages, for example, it doesn't simply make sense to put that in skills, right? Because AI would read the whole documentation, but you don't want that the agent reads the documentation. You want to give an API to the agent that it can, for example, search the documentation.
Yep. Wow. Wow. So you have that specification, and then you go to an AI harness, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there you have MCP and skills.
Yeah, you can add more things. So it really depends on which agent that you use. So we will focus on Claude Code because, in my opinion, that's the most capable agent. But there are different opinions on that. So I don't. I have no direct connection with Anthropic. But Claude also has pre-hooks and post-hooks, so you can force Claude to do something before it executes something, or you can force Claude to do something after it's done or before it's done. They even have new capabilities with goals and stuff, so they add new features constantly. So it's very, how to say, it's not easy to follow the process. So because you get a new version of Claude Code every day. So, and that's why I concentrate on Claude Code. So I read all the release notes every day that they do to keep track with what they are working on. And if I would do that with multiple agents, I wouldn't have any time to work. So just use that one. And
still, so you tell the harness basically your prompt, and in this prompt you have, for example, Vaadin. Oh no, Vaadin. Or Spring, or whatever technicality you want to bring into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. And okay.
So we will see that the prompt is mainly somehow hidden in the skills. So you don't prompt. So we don't do kind of prompt engineering. Sorry, we do skill engineering, so to say. And that means we just say implement use case 1, for example. You will see that. And this implement skill knows, okay, I need that and that, and I have this. And also, as part of the harness, I would say, or the kind of the documentation that we have if we do Java development is the Maven POM file or the Gradle file, depending on which one you're using. Because there AI knows which version of which frameworks you're using. And I don't allow the agent to change the Maven POM. So that's something that I do. I decide on versions, I decide on libraries to use. So that's my job. And so to say, it's kind of additional context for AI that it knows which version of Vaadin it has to use and which version of Spring Boot and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so this is spec-driven development. This is not yet AI unified process.
That's not yet unified process. Yeah.
Okay, so can we start with that, or
yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So let's share my screen because maybe let's start with those 4 agile phases, right? Sorry.
Just show the diagram. So that's a website, unifiedprocess.ai. And the name is Unified Process because in the past there are multiple different unified processes already. So we had the Russian Unified Process that was a process framework, so to say. People didn't like it because it has a lot of roles and a lot of artifacts. And people didn't realize that that was a framework. That was not a process that you should use out of the box. You should customize that for your needs. And there were Agile Unified Process, and now I created the AI Unified Process, and I just took terms and artifacts from the Russian Unified Process. So that's the reason for that. Most people don't know Russian Unified Process anymore. Only if they have my hairstyle, then they probably know about that process. Other than that, they are too young to know what we did in the past. So what we have here in colors are phases. So these phases are not waterfall. These are iterative incremental phases. But the blue one is so-called inception phase. So that's the starting point of every project. So some business people come to you and say, okay, listen, I want to create a tool to manage events and workshops, for example. And you write down a vision, or someone writes down a vision. Usually it's mostly the project manager or the business person that is initiating the project that writes that. Mm-hmm. And what happens then, usually you have business analysts, requirements engineers, and they start to gather requirements. So they do workshops. So very often we follow a domain-driven design way. So we have things like domain storytelling. That's one technique that you can do in workshops. So the business users, for example, explain you how they work, and you as a requirements engineer gather these user stories. Or you can have event storming. That's another technique from the domain-driven design field, where you think about what events happen, business events happen in your system, and then you add entities and processes and everything along the way. And then you can also have that. And this, usually I call that requirements catalog. That's kind of a dump of requirements, right? So you have functional requirements. You can also have quality requirements, means we need some availability of 99.999%, or we have response times about below half a second, for example, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And this all gets into the mix. Maybe you have some GPDR requirements, or you have some requirements because of people with disabilities. So you have to build your application accessible. You're in a country like Switzerland where you have multiple languages, so you have to have translations of the application. That all goes into those documents, right?
Right. Okay.
And that could be Confluence, that could be Word, that could be Markdown. That really doesn't matter. So that's not part of my process, so to say, because in the blue phase, especially with gathering requirements, there is the International Requirements Engineering Board, and they also have certifications, and they also have something new that's called AI for RE, so AI Requirements Engineering. and they created kind of a handbook for requirements engineers, how they could use AI to gather requirements or to manage requirements, to evaluate requirements, for example. So as you said, you can use AI for everything, but also for there. Now, it starts to be interesting for us as software engineers in the green phase. That's the construction phase. So,
these phases, do they translate here?
Yes. So, sorry to say, the elaboration phase is the green one. So I didn't add. Maybe I should add. So the elaboration phase, or the conceptual phase, or the specification creation phase, so to say, has like 3 different roles. So if we start on the left-hand side, we have the requirements engineer, or the business people that start to think about use cases in the system and about data or domain models. So they create system use cases and entity models. So that's very simple. So if you have a user story, for example, I as a user want to create workshop templates to be able to create workshops or something like that. That could be user story. And from that, you can derive, okay, we have a user. So that's probably an actor in the system or a role, right? So that's a person who used that. Then we have a workshop template. Okay, we have something like templates. That's an entity, maybe, or an aggregate. So depending on you're doing DDD, that's DDD aside, just call it an entity. Then we have another entity that's called workshop that we want to create from that template. So we already have 2 data objects or 2 entities that we have to manage. So the entity model also works as a glossary, and especially it also works as information about the validation of the data that we will have in the system, right? So that's the data. And the system use cases can be derived from the user stories. So user stories or a use case can be one or many user stories. So a use case is on a higher level. So that's exactly describes for certain business activity from the point of view of the user of the system. So that means if we want to create a template, for example, we have the actor user. That's the starting point. The precondition is, for example, that the system is running. And then we have the main flow. So the user navigates to the workshop template page, for example, and then it creates a new workshop, enters data, and this can all be defined. So we can define which data must be mandatory. That's usually already in the entity model. And these are, we will see that. So that's kind of the description.
Yeah.
Then in the middle part is software architecture. So based on the requirements, we know, for example, we need some multi-user capable system. So we need a web application. We need maybe a mobile application. We need to take care about the performance because there is written that it should be very fast. And we create software architecture document. So I took the name from the Rational Unified Process. In reality, a lot of companies that I know use ARC42 for doing software architecture documentation, which is also Markdown that will be stored in the project somewhere, right? That's the architecture work. We already did that because we decided before the event that we use Vaadin and JOOQ and Postgres database, and we want to deploy it on Fly and Neon. We will see that. So we already did this software architecture work, right? And then on the right-hand side, we have the test engineering part. So based on the requirements, the test engineers think about what kind of tests will we need. So do we need end-to-end tests? Yes, we need them because we do a web application. Do we need performance tests? Yes, probably as well, because there are some requirements that require very fast reaction of the system. So we need to prove that. So we need a test that can do load or performance tests and so on. And they create a test strategy usually, and then they create these so-called acceptance tests that will be then executed. But that's different. That's other line. So we have like requirements engineer, software architecture, software design, and test engineering. So these are the 3 kind of silos that we see here, right?
So, as far as I understand it, the entity model and the system use case are the specification, basically.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This describes the business logic that we want to have. And this one is more technical. So the software architecture document describes specific technologies that should be used for certain cases.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And the acceptance test just writes down what kind of tests we need.
Yeah. So the difference maybe when it comes to tests, the testing in the development phase. So if you go down a bit, then we have the orange phase. Now we take like the green parts, especially system use cases and the entity model as the input for the flows and the data. And on the other hand, we have the harness, so to say, like the software architecture that we built then into skills, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And we also use this documentation for guidelines additionally. And then we have the software engineering part, like the programming part, so to say, where we use AI to generate code and tests. And then we review everything. So as you can see here, we have this this phase where we generate something and we always review. So everything is reviewed, code is reviewed, test is reviewed, so and so on. And depending on what we are doing, either we generate code first or we generate tests first. So if we would do like a REST API, for example, that could also be a use case, then we would probably do test-driven development because we will do the open API specification and we write tests against stubs. And then we start to implement that, or AI will implement that.
So that's not a business case, the test-driven development. It's more on the technical side, but I would say that's a software architecture document.
Yeah. So I would say if you have you test the software is kind of work on in the software architecture, because depending on the architecture, maybe you have different styles of testing, and this goes there.
Yeah. Okay.
As a concept. Because if you do UI development, then test-driven development is very hard. Because you don't know in the first place which UI components you have, how they are organized, for example, and then finding the test first is very, very difficult to do that. So you have to have some running application that you can do UI tests, for example. And that's it.
So at the end of all this process, we have a running application here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about that's software engineering as we did it 30 years ago already. So that's no difference.
Well, for me, there's a big difference. So I worked on projects where we had kind of this, we did not follow this completely, but we have had a very long planning phase before we did any programming, and we thought about what the application has to do and how we do it with what technology, and then we'll get to work. And while we work on that application, a lot of things change.
Yeah.
And what nobody ever wants to do or did was change the actual specification.
Yeah.
So at the end, you got a running application and it was fine. But the specification or the documentation was completely out of sync.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem, because then you, in theory, have some kind of documentation, but in reality, it's very far apart, and as time grows, it grows further and further apart. So
absolutely.
This is a big difference for me, and I talked about this with Ralf D. Müller last session, that in this spec-driven development, I find it so cool that basically the specification is the one true, what do you say, that the
source of truth.
The single source of truth. Yeah. Exactly. And with this specification, you have a shared truth, a shared understanding of the application, and it's shared between you and the AI. So both of you have the same understanding. And if you want to change something, you actually don't change the code, but the specification, and the AI writes or implements that specification.
Yep.
And that's a really good way, I think, to develop and to still have control over the code you're writing.
Yeah. There is something very, very, very important that I have to mention, is because people are looking at spec-driven development and say, hey, that's waterfall.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Because here in that case, or I work with 4 customers actually with that process, and we do a very agile way of working. So we really work use case by use case. So the backlog entry in our case is always a use case. So that means the product owner decides in which order use cases are implemented and even specified. So we don't do upfront use case specification. So we don't go ahead and say, okay, we have 100 use cases. Now let's specify all of that.
Yeah.
We think about how can we organize the use cases, and then we go use case by use case. So like you would do it with agile software development. So you have backlog entry, you create sprint planning, and then you create tasks for the sprint. That's exactly the same. The difference is that the most work is not going into software programming. Most of the work goes into the use case specification. And the good thing here is the use case specification does not need a software engineer to be written. So business people can write the specification. For sure, software engineers have to check the specification if it's implementation ready somehow. AI can check the system use cases if they are clear enough, so kind of ready for implementation, if they have overlaps, if they have gaps, if they have contradictions somehow with other use cases, and then you can start to do that. But we really work use case by use case. So we have a very iterative, incremental way of working.
Yeah. So one question. So if you have your use case and you let the AI generate code, usually if a developer does that, or what can happen is that he tries to implement it, and then it's found out that the use case is not working for whatever reason, because something was not thought of, and the use case actually has to change.
Yep.
So that's like the agile way. You go back and forth and try to adjust the specifications to the actual code, or what the reality is.
Yep.
And so when you tell the AI to implement a use case and it can't do it, is this sometimes possible that the AI also tells you, well, no, that's not possible for that reason, or this is dangerous, we should change the use case?
Yeah. If you go down a bit, I think, let's scroll down, further down. Here are 2 diagrams. Click on the left one.
Oh.
Can you? Yes, that's perfect. As you can see, the requirement, I call it the requirements engineer here, but this could be some business person. That doesn't really matter who it is, or it could be a software engineer. And here down here, you have the software engineer and the agent. And here we have review. So that means the software engineer reviews the use case. And before AI starts to implement it, it also reviews the use case. You can tell AI, please review the use case if it's ready to implement, and then AI will give you a review. And usually I do that, and then I send the review back to the requirements engineer and say, hey, there's something missing, or there's a mistake probably in the use case, check it again.
Yeah.
But usually also already the requirements engineer is working with AI on the use case itself. So this happens not very often, but it could be. What's also important to say is if the use case is, for example, the requirements engineer could create a new branch in the Git repo and add the use case. And we could have a pipeline that takes the use case specification and uses the agent on the pipeline, for example, on GitHub, and works there and creates tests and code.
Yeah.
And if the review, so we could even have AI doing a review, and we could have a continuous delivery to the test system, for example. That means the requirements engineer could change the use case, and after the pipeline run, probably after 10 minutes or so, he can view directly what changed on the test system.
Okay.
And then the requirements engineer say, oh, okay, I've got to add an information that this field is mandatory, for example.
Yeah.
And he goes back, changes that, the pipeline runs, and he says, okay, now it's fine. So it's kind of it could be, depending on how your architecture work looks like and how your programming model is, then you could automate a lot of things. So I do that. I'm working on a governance project currently, and we have this automation. So the requirements engineer can change the use case, and this will go through the pipeline. I do reviews, but I do that asynchronous, not directly after code changes, a bit later. But he ultimately get the application deployed on the test system.
So the requirements engineer basically has a prototype that he can then try and experiment, and if something changes, the engineer can change the use case.
Yeah, because
but cool.
In that project, what's special, it has a very complex permission system, because there are a lot of actors in the system, and all of them some may change that data, others may change that data. For some, these fields are required, for others, other fields are required. And it was quite difficult to create a matrix with data types and permissions that this works. And so we did a lot of iterations on that until he find, okay, now AI understood me and could create the right code. But he doesn't see the code, he just sees the application. But that's enough. And I do the review of the application finally to check if there are performance issues, security issues, or code style things, or things that are simply wrong, maybe. But I don't do kind of a review constantly. I do the reviews from time to time, more in times of a whole review, not just a review of the code changes, but to see if the application exactly does what it needs to do. That's the idea.
Yeah. All right. That's really good. So I got a good understanding of what this is all about. I'm not sure what files we will create and what will contain what, but we will see that in a practical example now.
We will do that now.
Okay. So we can start implementing, actually.
We can start, yes. And we start with the vision, like on this diagram.
Exactly. So what we have is this repository, the Spec-Driven Demo, where I added the vision. And I already checked this out here locally. And what I also have is Docker sandboxes. I'm a big fan of those right now because they are really useful to me. And I already created a Claude Code sandbox, which we can now execute. And then we have our own little sandbox where the AI can do harm, but not as much as running locally with full permissions without the sandbox. Yeah, and now I got nothing. I don't know why that keeps happening. But at some point it will start Claude. Yeah, here we go.
Very good.
All right, so where shall we start?
Yeah, do you have the code somewhere to an editor or something?
Yes, I have. So this is my Visual Studio Code, where only the README is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an empty folder.
Yeah, now create a directory that's called docs. So that's kind of my style. You could name that specification or whatever, but my skills that I have assume that there should be a docs folder. And now in that docs folder, create the file called visionmd. You should lowercase.
All right.
Doesn't matter. Now we can copy the vision that we have from the README. So that's just for demo, right? Because usually you probably don't start here, but it doesn't matter. So now this vision gives context to AI. And now we can go to the sandbox. And first to show the audience what we did, call /plugin. Or just plugin, right? And now go to the installed with tab or with the arrow key, exactly. And now if you go down a bit, then you will see that there are somewhere plugins, or go to the marketplaces, that's simpler.
Okay.
Here. And here we have the AI Unified Process Marketplace, and here we have skills. So if you hit enter there on the, exactly, then we can again hit enter.
Oh yeah. We should update those before we start.
Very good. So we have an AI App core that's more for the requirements and specification thing. And because I use Vaadin and JOOQ a lot with my customers, I created a AI App Vaadin JOOQ plugin. And these plugins just contain skills and MCP definitions, also MCP server definitions. Exactly. And you should go back and update it because you probably don't have the latest version.
Yeah, just one thing. So this is the Cloud plugin, but we want this one. So you have a GitHub repository where this is all explained and it's shown how you can install those plugins as well.
Exactly. So that's the cool thing about Cloud Code, because Cloud Code solved the problem of distributing plugins and skills and stuff like that. Very good.
Yeah, so now that's really neat.
Updated, plugin pumped. That looks good.
Okay.
So now we can go back, and now we have a vision, and probably we want to use AI to think about requirements, for example. So we can do /requirements. Somehow the plugins are not activated. Is this possible?
Is the plugin reload plugins?
Yeah. Okay.
That could be.
Now try again. Requirement.
I'm writing something wrong.
Go again to the plugin, then we can check that out. And to the marketplace, then a unified process. Okay, I think they are not activated. Go hit enter, then browse plugins. Then exactly, hit enter and install for you. So they are not installed. Probably you only had the first one.
Oh, okay.
And then do that again for the second one.
Yeah. And then reload.
Reload the plugins, exactly. And now /requirement.
Now we get it.
Now we can hit enter. We don't have to say anything. So if you go to the GitHub repo, we can have a look at the skill and to the code. If we go up and then a core and then the directory requirements or skills, then requirements. And we have a skill. So if you do the skill first, there's the skill. A skill has a so-called front matter, so with the description, with the name and the description. And in the description, we have the information when it should use it. And I was talking about Tessel. So Tessel.io is the website of the company, and they do skill evaluation tools. So you can use Tessel to check if your skills are well written, and also if they would be picked up by AI. And they work on a lot of evaluation things. so on. And if you go down here in the skill, you see that we have different requirements types like functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and constraints. And they all have IDs. And now AI with that skill tries to extract the requirements from the vision. So it kind of thinks about what the requirements could be, and then it creates some. And probably that's already finished. So if you go back to the sandbox, that it's still working on it, and it's done. So now we can go in the editor again, and now we have a requirements document, and we have now we have some. If you disable the break, the line wrap, then you would see it better. Yeah, perfect. Yep. And now you see requirements. So create meeting template, edit meeting templates. So he created user stories. So these are that comes out of the fantasy of or of the not of the fantasy of the imagination of AI, because he thinks to know about that. In reality, we wouldn't do that, right? In reality, you have a requirements engineer who writes them by hand. So they discuss with the users what they want to have, and then they create these requirements here.
So is the vision usually longer or more extensive? No.
Yeah, usually it's more extensive. So usually you have. So I'm currently working for a mechanical shop with 9 employees, and we're creating an ERP system, or I'm creating an ERP system for them. And I get a project description from the owner of that mechanical shop, and he wrote down a brain dump what he wants to have. So it's not a brain dump; it's really a good description what he wants to have. So he can rent like lawnmowers, for example, or you can have them fixed, or you can have like stuff like that. And so if you scroll down a bit, you will see that there are a lot of IDs. So this could give you an ID as the owner what could be available. And here we have some information that AI thinks that you usually need. For example, with the non-functional requirements, that you have availability, that you have data retention, that you have concurrency and stuff like that. And that's just like a hint for you as a requirements engineer that you may need to ask the business, hey, what about availability? Do you need that the application runs on weekends because you just work Monday to Friday? And these are things that you can reason about, right? But the requirements catalog is usually created by requirements engineers manually, not with AI.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the area where you said usually the businesses have to do that on their own. You can help and try to work out these things, but this is not AI enhanced.
No. So that could be an AI enhanced, because you can use AI and say, okay, look, that's my requirements catalog. Check it. Do we have duplicates? Or do you think that something is missing based on your idea about workshop and event management? Because probably in the training data, AI knows how workshop and event management works.
Yeah.
So it can give you additional IDs, and that's what it did here. Also the priorities, the status and stuff like that, that's just an ID. Now, we don't have time to do that, but in reality, you would sit down and do a review of all the requirements, think about that and refine it, remove it, especially remove it, because there's probably too much thing inside that we may not need.
Yeah. Okay.
But now we have the requirements. And as I said, if you look at the user story that we have here, then it's clear that we have a role organizer, right? So it says, as an organizer, I want to create meeting templates. So we have an organizer as an actor, we have meeting templates as an entity, we have agenda items, we have time limits, outcomes, meetings, something, and that all gives an ID what could be an actor. And also this create meeting template probably is a use case for the system. So here we have like the business requirement, we want to create meeting templates. And for the system, we need a system use case called probably create meeting template that will then define how the workflow is. So we open the meeting template application or view, and then we add the data. And we will do exactly that. So I would say we start with the entity model. So we can go back to the, right? And now I would clear the context. So because we don't need what happened right now. And we have another skill that's called entity model. So we have / entity model.
Yeah.
And this entity model now looks for a document called requirements MD and extracts the entity model from the requirements.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's something a requirements engineer does usually. So he goes through the requirements for user stories and says, okay, that's an entity, that's an actor. So that's pretty clear. So that's classical requirements engineering. That's no rocket science. That's things that requirements do for decades.
Yeah.
But now AI can do that for you, and that's much faster. Extracting requirements, extracting entity models from requirements. I would say it's already done. Maybe.
But at this point, you say the AI probably has enough information to extract the entity model and the system use case from the requirements catalog.
Absolutely.
So that's why we can use it here.
Yeah. And now as you can see, it's almost done. It extracted something called user. You have a meeting template, template item, a meeting, and agenda item. So these are all entities that AI found.
Yeah.
And because the skill also have a template or a description how entity models must look like, we will see in a minute how it really looks like, because it will have an entity diagram in Mermaid syntax, and then it will have tables, so descriptions per entity.
Yeah, so for me, there would be a facilitator as well, participant and viewer, but maybe that's summarized as a user here.
Yeah, because that's the users or roles that you were mentioning are actors. So that is probably a role in the system. And so the user would probably have a role of type facilitator, organizer, stuff like that. So now it does a check, and now it's done. Right. And now we have a document called entity model, and you can start a preview if you have some.
So nice.
Now I use that because I don't want to have attributes in the model. That's fine. The diagram just to visualize the dependencies between the different entities that we have in the system. And now we can scroll down and you will find tables that describes the entities in detail. So we have, and that comes from the skill, because the skill says, okay, an entity description has an attribute, description, data type, length, precision, and validation rule.
Okay. But this is already very specific. So the data type is basically also like a technical thing, right?
Yeah. And now here in my skill, somewhere is written, IDs are always sequences. Now, if your company or you think, oh no, that's not a good idea, I want to have UUIDs as IDs, then you have to override the skill and say, okay, in my case, entity models have IDs or entities have IDs, but those are always UUIDs.
Yeah.
So that's up to you.
But that's the nice thing about these skills. You can just download them and change them however you want, and then they work the same. Yeah.
And if you're in a bigger company, for example, then you may share the skills from team to team, that everybody uses the same. And now we can scroll down. So we usually we would need to verify that.
I just wanted to see if there is any kind of role for the user, but there's not one yet.
No, I didn't see any. So we have a meeting. Probably, I would say the role is missing. somehow.
Invitation. Okay.
That's an invitation. Okay. But that's the invitation, but that's not the user role. But however, we will see how it turns out.
Yeah.
So in reality, now you would probably, the requirements engineer would come to the software engineer and say, hey, that's my entity model. Can you check? Do the data types make sense? Is the length correct? Are the dependencies between them okay? Do you see some problems in the entity model? And you would discuss about the entity model, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way you would work. So now we have the entity model, and we go. So we say that's okay. And now we need use cases, but we don't want to create specification. What we want to have first is a use case diagram. So we have a use case diagram.
Okay.
And you can hit enter again. And this will also use the requirements document and derive use cases from that. So I just need a diagram because I want to have an overview of all the use cases that are in the system. And I want to have all the actors that are in the system. So this would be the roles, and we have the use cases. And if we have that, we can then go ahead and work use case by use case. So that's what I was said before. We don't have upfront waterfall specifications. We really have like kind of an iterative way of working with the use cases. Now, in that case, probably the use cases will be more or less one-to-one with the functional requirements.
Is there a reason why you use plant UML for this and Mermaid for the other diagram?
A very, very stupid reason, because Mermaid has no UML diagram type.
Oh, okay.
Or they have UML diagrams, but not a use case diagram type. That's the problem.
Okay.
But probably you have a...
I installed that last time, but it didn't work last time. So I'm happy that this works.
And now you see you have the actors on the left side, and on the right side you have the use cases. And now you should go ahead again with the business people and think about or talk about the use cases. Are these really the use cases that you see? Do you have these roles? So, I mean, we are now doing something greenfield, right? But in an organization, they have roles. So they have, maybe they have this meeting organizer. That's a role in the system, in the company. And then you can argue about that. So that's kind of that. Probably that's not too bad, because the actors are already in the vision, right? You wrote that down, which actors we will have in the system.
Yeah.
And now we go to the interesting part of our work, because now we want to have a use case specification. And I would say we start with the first use case. Can you go back to the diagram first?
The other diagram, yeah.
Go up. I think we should start with creating a meeting template, I would say.
Yeah, so use case 001.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the ID generation is also in part of the skill. If you want to have another ID format, for example, you have to change that in the skill as well for you.
Yeah, okay.
Now you can clear the context again, because we don't need that. And now we could say use case spec, and then use UC 001.
Okay.
And now he looks at the use case. He looks at the requirements. He looks at the vision, everything he can find, and thinks, okay, what could we do here, or how could it look like? So in reality, someone would write that, right? Because someone knows how the process works. Here we don't know how the process works, because we didn't do that. So we let AI do the process. So we could say, okay, now AI is the requirements engineer and thinks about how we could create templates, for example. Now we can see it reads the requirements, the use case diagram,
Yeah.
thinks about that. And this is small, right? So it's very important as we are waiting, we can talk about architecture. So what's very important if you have a system. So I have my volunteer management system that I created for a sports club that has over 80 use cases. And 80 use cases on a single diagram is not visible or not readable, right?
Yeah.
And so I created kind of modules in the system or bounded context, we would call that in a domain-driven design world. And I split that big application into smaller parts.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the architecture style I use is self-contained systems.
Right.
Because in the past, we did microservices, we did micro front ends, but for AI, there's no distinction between front end and back end, right? Because you have a developer, the agent, that can do everything. So we don't have to split that somehow. Now it's done. Let's have a look at the diagram, not the diagram, that's on the use cases. Use case 001.
I don't like this. Okay.
And now here we have some formatting issues, like it doesn't do line breaks, but it doesn't
line
matter.
break, yeah. Oh.
So that's kind of this one. And then we have preconditions. So here in that case, the organizer is the actor, and it needs to be logged in the system that it can do that. And now with the scenario here, the main success scenario, that's the main flow. And here you have the steps. So it selects create template. Then we have a form that's displayed. The user enters the data, and he clicks save, and the system validates, and the system displays the saved template with a confirmation message. So that's the regular outcome. And then we have different use cases. So removes agenda item or validates error and save, organize, cancels the creation. And the post condition is usually a success, so that the template is saved. And we have a fail post condition that nothing is saved and the error message is displayed. And then we have some business rules that AI derived. So the title is required, for example. You need at least one agenda item. And if you scroll down, there are more. And authentication is required. That's clear. That's a precondition. And then we have some time range information, for example. And now some business people, again, must read these use cases and check, are these business rules correct? Are the flows correct? Is the outcome correct? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But as you can see from that's a very short one, right? We have the use cases that span like 20 pages sometimes. And what we do there, we create an activity diagram from the use case that adds kind of a visualization that's simple to view, right?
Yeah,
so that as well. But as you can see, that's simple, and there's no implementation details. So there are details like it needs a form. In the form, we have fields and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's no real. So so to say, from this use case specification, you can say which technology will be used, because all technology would work for that use case probably.
Yes. Yep. I see.
And now we have this. Now we do, we just leave it here. So we just do one use case now. But what we need to implement the use case first is we need some database tables, because we have Postgres database. And for that, we can use the entity model and directly generate Flyway scripts or Licky-based scripts from the entity model, because that's simple, right? Because we have the data types, we have the precision, stuff like that. What we need now is SQL scripts that create tables for the database that we use. Now, AI knows that we use Postgres because that's the dependency in the POM, right? So
we don't have a POM yet.
Oh, we don't have a POM yet. That's true.
So there's one step missing.
We missed one step. Exactly. So now we can go ahead and create the project. And we have an archetype. So for people that don't know archetypes, that's a Maven mechanism, how you can scaffold projects directly. And I created this on my stack. So it's not me that called this stack Simon Martinelli's stack. In fact, it was Tim Zollner. He was talking with someone else. And Tim Zollner called that the Simon Martinelli stack because I always use this stack. So you can copy that. So you don't need the last two lines, it doesn't matter. We can do that. And now you can go into the project directory.
Oh, okay. I'm on Windows, so this won't work that easily. I can't just input it because it can't read these line breaks.
Then we have to have an editor and just do a text file, right? And remove also the last two lines. You don't need the last two lines.
Okay.
That's enough. Perfect.
I think so too. Yep. So here we go.
You have to do it outside the project directory. Sorry. You have to go one level up.
Okay, but then the name has to be correct.
The name has to be Spec-Driven Demo,
Yeah.
But you can set that later on. Just go step outside.
Yeah, but then it will create a folder, does it?
No.
Won't it?
I will guide you. Just trust me.
Okay, in this directory, I have a lot of projects.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Now hit enter.
Let's see. I'm not even sure I have Maven installed. Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. So now it will ask for something. So it downloads the archetype first, for sure. Now the group ID, you can freely choose. Enter.
Yes.
And the artifact ID has now to have the name of the directory that you had before.
And that was Spec-Driven Demo.
Yes. Version doesn't matter.
Yep.
Package is up to you.
So Spec-Driven Demo.
Perfect. Yes. So now it check if it really created something because it did a warning because something. Yeah, perfect. We have the project here.
Okay.
Now
we have the POM.
Now we have the POM. Exactly. And now we also have everything that we need, I think. So maybe you can try to start the application. So the simplest is do it in the command line because you're using Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code has problems with generated code from JOOQ, by the way.
Oh, okay. But just to see this, so in this POM, it is defined that this is probably a Spring Boot project with Vaadin, and JOOQ is already installed as well.
Yeah, and it also has Flyway, test containers, some security stuff, Postgres, JSpecify, stuff like that, and all the testing things.
Okay, so a lot of technical libraries are defined here. Okay.
And now you can go ahead and run Maven Spring Boot. No, test -run, because we want to start the application with test containers. So I can show you that. Just do that, and we will see what happened. So what happens here, there is a test application in the source test folder that integrates test containers. So it has the test containers configuration that we use for testing. And that means we also have test containers during development. So it really
I think I have to start Docker. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, so if you go to the project directory maybe or to Visual Studio Code, then go in the source test directory, then Java, and we have this test application. And this test application has also a main method, and it starts the application class with the test contains configuration. And in the test contains configuration class, we have the Postgres SQL container. So
Nice.
very important if you are here. We are not in a Spring Boot lesson, but never use latest from any Docker image because you don't know what you get. Because latest is not the latest version. Latest is the latest image that was created without the tag or explicitly with the latest tag. And tomorrow, latest can be something else than today. And you don't want to do that. You would probably prefer to write down the Postgres version that you, in fact, want to use.
So what's current? I'm not
18,
even sure. 18.
18 something, yeah.
Okay.
But just whatever. It doesn't matter. So that's cool.
Well, you just said you shouldn't use it, so we don't use it.
We don't do that. Okay. Now, this all downloads a lot of directory, a lot of things, and this gives me time to get some water.
Okay, so we have our POM here, and the basic structure is here. We have probably a hello world view.
Yeah, if you start the application, you should see hello world.
Yeah, with already translated, so we'll have some.
Yeah, everything is in place. So that does a lot of things.
Okay. And a Flyway script.
Yeah, because we have a user table with user role that we probably will not need, or AI will remove that or change that. So that's just for the demo. Where are we? Pulling Docker. Now it pulls probably the latest because we started that, but it's not so important.
Yep.
Yeah. I use Postgres, by the way, because Postgres is the fastest SQL database in terms of startup time. So in a test contains or the tests, you can start Postgres and it starts in under a second.
Okay.
So it's probably even faster than using H2, for example.
All right.
H2 runs in memory, but this also has to be started somehow, and probably this takes longer than just that one.
And does it matter how much data is in the database for startup time?
No.
No. All right.
Yeah, that's not the truth, but let's say no. So now it's started. Let's have a look.
Okay.
It runs on port 8080, hopefully. Now it's done. Yes. Try again.
Now it's done.
Perfect. So we have hello world, or in German hello Welt, because you're German. And we can also have, that doesn't work actually somehow, because I don't know. But let's have it in German. You can even log in. So if you click on anmelden, then you can use admin, for example, with a very safe password as well.
Oh yeah, I should change it.
Now now you can manage the users. So that's something that's simply included as a demo in that archetype.
Okay.
But as we have everything we need, now we can start to create the Flyway script. So you can go back to the sandbox. And there is slash Flyway migration. That's it. So just do that. And this will look for an entity model file and then generate the Flyway migrations for that. And the point with that, you can rerun this skill.
Yeah.
So every time you change the entity model, just run Flyway migration, and it will create the Flyway migrations, or it will add the migrations. So if it's now initially, it will create all the new tables, but later on, if you change table structure or name or add columns, then it will just apply the changes and create a new migration script.
So I like all these skills. I just think about if I use this all the time, it's hard to remember what skill I have to use when I do certain things. Like if I update let's say here we are.
Yeah.
Now if I update something in the entity model, or no, you wouldn't. Yeah, I can update the requirements a little bit. Then I have to update the entity model and the system use case, and then update the Flyway migration and all that stuff.
I know what you mean, but you will get used to it. So it's no, but if you go to the tools page in the menu, then you can scroll down a bit. And here you have the documentation, what actually happens. It's even better documented on the GitHub page. But I know what you mean. I already had the feedback, and probably I will have to add the tool calls to the diagram that you exactly see, okay, in this step, use that, and then you will get that. Yeah. I just use it so much that I just know how it works, right?
Yeah, probably after a few times, you know what to call when. But that's such a unique workflow, and you certainly have to get used to it.
Absolutely.
Also, quite some
so let's check the code, or let's check the agent that is still running.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as you can see, it found that there's a create user SQL statement, and now it looks at that and does something. Maybe usually if you start an application, you probably would remove that. That's really just for demo that we have user, because in most of the cases, user management is not done internal of the application. So you have like Keycloak or Microsoft Entra, or as we were talking, Google OAuth provider, for example, that you don't have to take care of user management and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's really just for demo. And now you can see it creates per table a migration. Maybe you don't like that. You would have a single migration file initially. Then you could also do that and change the skill or tell AI to do that. And now it will validate that. And it looks like it's done. Now we can go back to there. And what you can run now is Maven compile, for example.
So it still has the create user here.
Yeah, I mean, it still uses the user, because it probably also references the user table now in the data model.
Okay.
And now it also created or you have to stop that, right? And then run Maven compile just to, it doesn't matter. Maven compile just is enough, and to see if the scripts run. So we could have Claude Code to run Maven compile, but that's just a waste of tokens. So we can also run it here.
So now this is very specific to JOOQ.
Yeah.
When you build the application, it actually, it probably in your configuration, it actually starts a test container with Postgre, applies the Flyway scripts, and then extracts the tables, the metadata from those tables into JOOQ Java files.
Yeah.
Classes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Because then you can go ahead as an engineer and actually build your JOOQ queries based on those classes, and that way your SQL commands are type safe.
Yeah, and that's what we are doing right now. So go back to Claude Code. And you can clear the context first. And now we have an implement skill. So and now we say implement use case 001.
Okay.
And now it takes this Vaadin JOOQ plugin with the implement skill. And now it knows, okay, I need to create the Vaadin view. I need to use create a repository that uses JOOQ. And it will look at the existing code. There we don't have a repository, we have a data access object. You know, the difference between a repository and data access object is just the name or the origin. Because data access object is a pattern from J2E from 1999. And repository is a pattern from domain-driven design from 2004.
All right.
And the repository operates on aggregate roots or on aggregates, and the data access object pattern operates on tables or on entities, so to say. That's just a slightly different approach, but it really doesn't matter so much.
Okay.
Most of the people even don't know why repositories are called repositories.
Yeah,
that's all fine.
I didn't know that.
And now it starts to implement something. By the way, it already finds things because I also used JOOQ for the user management part. And so it looks at the code. And that's different from working in a team than working with AI. So especially Claude Code produces so-called idiomatic code. So it looks at the existing code and applies the same pattern that it finds to the new code. If you have a team of 3, then you have 3 styles, maybe. Maybe some look how things are implemented and try to do it the same way. Others have their own style. And then you can, in some applications, you can tell who created which class.
Yes, absolutely.
With AI, that's not possible because it uses or reuses the style that it finds in the code.
Yeah, see.
Now it looks at the tables at the POM. He tries to figure out what he has. Maybe it will call some MCP servers, for example, to find information about that.
Okay,
and it still works. So as you can see, it doesn't call the LLM. So that means Claude Code does a lot of things locally before it uses the LLM finally. So it tries to find code, it tries to find information, what he wants to do. And only when it's ready to really call the LLM, it will do that, not before.
Yeah, that's something I'm not so happy with Claude, because a lot of times I really don't know what it does. So it says it's searching for 4 patterns.
Hit Control O.
Yeah.
And now we see what it does.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay. So where are we? It's doing this?
Yeah, it reads the configuration. Yeah. Now you can get back with Control O because it will not update probably directly.
Yeah, but you see, it doesn't do anything with the LLM.
No, it just does everything locally. So it really tries to gather the information about how the task it should do should be done, and that's probably all locally. And that's
but it's like reading files. That shouldn't be hard. right?
I don't know what it actually does with the reading with the files, but yeah.
Well,
in fact, now it's a bit slow. I don't know why,
yeah.
because usually such a use case is done in like 3 minutes.
I only have the Pro version, so
Oh,
maybe this
that's-
is.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. I have the Max version,
Yeah.
and that's true. That's very often kind of makes the difference, I would say. Yeah.
Mm. But we can take a look at the deployment
Yep.
at Neon and at Fly. So we want to deploy the application here in Fly.io.
Yes.
And the database is running here at neon.tech.
Yeah. So maybe some words about that. Neon is a so-called serverless database. So Neon is hosting Postgres databases, and you can use that for free. So they have a free plan as well. And the interesting thing about Neon is Neon has a concept called database branching. So you can create branches of your database. So we have just a production here because we don't have another one. But maybe if you have a workflow where you do branches, then you could create a production or a copy of the production database per branch. And you can work or test your application by branch. And if you don't need that, you can just remove it. And the branching is more or less just immediate. So it really is very fast that it doesn't copy the data. I don't know exactly how they would do that, but it's going very fast. And the other thing that's great, you have here an SQL editor, table view, backup restore, everything is integrated. Some people may know not Fire. What's the other database? Supabase. It's a very popular database as well. This has also authentication, and this one also has authentication. So that means we could even use this one or the Neon database for authentication.
All right. But you told me one thing that's really critical for me is that if it's not in use, if it's not being used by any application, if it's idle here, then it doesn't cost anything. So it shuts down completely.
Yeah. And it restarts immediate. So it's really like starting in milliseconds.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's
that will probably save a lot of energy and hopefully money.
Yeah, both. As that energy is difficult to say because I don't know, because energy would be saved only if they will shut down servers. If they shut down just a machine, it probably uses more or less the same amount of power.
Yeah, but if there are enough databases that can be shut down, then they probably scale down a bit.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing because then you don't need to pay for it, at least. And you can also choose the region, by the way. Probably that runs on AWS, like most of these things. So yeah, it's AWS, as you can see. Here we have Postgres 17, as you can see, not 18, by the way. But it doesn't matter, so it's not a big deal. And you also have monitoring. So if you click on the monitoring link on the left side, then there's no data because we have no data. We have no database tables. We have nothing. But this will be here, and you can monitor a lot of things and see what happens in your database.
Yeah, but basically what we did is we clicked here on connect, and then we'll get a connection string that we can directly paste into Java, or in this case, in fly.io, into our secrets. I think I can show that now, right?
Yes. And there we have secrets. You can click there because you will not see that.
Yeah. So that's the environment variable that's then injected into the container that it's running.
Yep, exactly.
Probably. Yep.
So let's see if the implementation is done
Yeah.
already. Maybe
No,
still not running. That's very. I think they are trolling you. I don't know what they're doing. Because this morning I had a workshop and did more or less the same. And it was more or less there immediately. Because it still reads some data. I don't know why this takes so long.
Yeah.
But I would say that's kind of.
Okay, but imagine that this is done. How do we continue?
If this is done, we would go ahead and review the code.
All right. Yeah.
And the point is that that's something that is about, how to say, it's about the stack that I use. So in my opinion, if you do UI work, you should have very good components. So you should, even if you do server-side rendering with Timely for something, you should go ahead and maybe look at the idea of Thomas Schilling. He has created some components, both Spring components, because you don't want to review HTML templates. Like if you have, for example, you have a data table in your application. And if you have to really verify if the data table is built correctly, that takes time. So, but if you have something like a data table or a grid from Vaadin, you just have to check if the grid is used correctly and not how the grid is implemented and how this works. So if you work for a company or if you do a big application, you should have a design system that contains information about the components, layouts, high-level components, stuff like that. This makes it very simple. If it comes to the database access, I use JOOQ because AI is very good in SQL. And so I don't need OR mapping like Hibernate because this is made for human. So that we don't have to know SQL, that we can directly get objects from a query. But if we don't write the code by our own, we don't need that abstraction level. So AI can do that for us. And reviewing a single SQL statement is simpler than reviewing entity model with annotations, with repositories from Spring Boot and stuff like that. So that's probably
even for human, it's sometimes much easier than reading Hibernate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I use JOOQ. I could directly use Spring Data JDBC with SQL in strings, but JOOQ shifts it left. So if the SQL statement is not correct, then the code will not compile because of the meta model.
All right.
But if you do SQL in strings, you have to run the tests to see if the queries actually are well formed. So you have to have tests to check if the results are correct. But you don't have to have checks with JOOQ that checks if the SQL is well crafted and if the things are used correctly.
Yeah, so you kind of use Java and its type safety a bit to again guardrail the AI in the right direction so that it can make less mistakes without human interaction.
Yeah, I think typed language is very important. I couldn't imagine doing something with PHP or something. I don't exactly know what happens. So I have to review less. So the less I have to review, the more time I save.
Right. So it's running Maven compile, which is a good sign.
So we can have a look at the code already.
Yeah. So where do we want to start, really?
Yeah, it should be somewhere there. Where is it? Where does it put it? Didn't it write it? Can you do a refresh? Probably. Now it looks like you don't have.
Yeah.
refresh Explorer. Exactly. Now we have core greeting template. So template is the package
This one.
there. And now we have, let's start with the domain. So we have the meeting template data access object, and here we see the query. So here we have the repository with the query, it selects templates, and it maps that into a template row. That's probably what it uses. So the row, if you look at the template, the meeting template row, this is probably class that holds the data. So that's what it returns.
Yeah, this one. Mm-hmm.
That's a record with ID, title, all the data. And there is also template item data. For if you go down to the template item data, that's probably used to insert the data. So you should find in the DAO, you should find a save method or something like that. If you scroll down, here we have the save. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And now, if you know JOOQ, then you can just scan it and say, okay, that looks about right. If you don't know JOOQ, you may want to check the code. So it really depends on, and that's a very important thing. If you know the frameworks that you use very well, you don't have to spend so much time. If you don't know the frameworks, you're in trouble, and you're anyway in trouble. Either if you want to write it by by hand, then you don't know how the framework works or the library, and if you must review the code, you don't know what it actually happens. So that means if you want to work with AI, you have to be a programmer. Otherwise, you are not able to review the code.
Yeah. And that's also part of your workflow here, that a human should review the tests or review the code. Here we are.
Now, are we done? Maybe we can start the application and see what happened. It's still running. Something is very slow. Either it's your machine or it's Claude Pro.
Shouldn't be my machine, to be honest, because
really slow.
StreamYard is running smoothly, and that takes a lot of computing power. So
yeah, to be honest, really, usually such a use case takes 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And what we are doing currently is not what you should do, right? So what I did in the beginning is exactly that. So I used Claude Code, started to create a use case. Somehow the build is failing.
Yeah.
That's probably, I see the problem. Because you're in a sandbox, it can maybe not access something. It tries now to set Java tool options, whatever, to proxy. But this should be set automatically, usually. Now it does some strange things. Can you run Maven compile?
Yeah. So we stopped this, right?
No, let it run. Just run Maven compile. And I'm curious if there's really a problem or not.
Well, it does have to start test containers, but that should work in the sandbox. I already tested that.
Yeah. Now it has really a compilation error. It has a compilation error because I use nullaway with JSpecify, so that for the type safe things.
Yeah.
And there is something wrong with that. So now it must figure out how this actually works, and then. But it really has a problem with somehow with generated classes, as I can see. It really looks like it doesn't find the generated classes, which is strange. Yeah. And now it checks Docker, as you can see, but the Docker engine is running. It tries again. Interesting.
So again, when this is done, and we reviewed the code is fine. We are good with that.
Yep.
How do we continue?
Then we would create the tests.
Because this is not part of the specification or the use case. Now, we only implemented one use case, and it doesn't implement tests for those use cases out of the box.
Because when we want to do UI tests, and we will do UI tests, so-called browserless tests, because you can run Vaadin in a mock mode somehow.
Yeah.
That doesn't use the browser, and also doesn't start a Tomcat web container. So we can run the whole code that we write or AI has written with just in-memory tests, like you would do with Spring Mock MVC when you do REST APIs or something. And that's a huge advantage, because that way you can have a very high test coverage. So I usually have around 95% test coverage in my applications, just with Vaadin and these browserless tests.
Yeah. And
because we are doing UI tests, we just have to have first the code. Otherwise it wouldn't work. Now it was lying on you. Because it said it's done, but probably it couldn't really call Maven compile for some reason. Yeah, whatever. He did Java compile probably, because somehow Maven didn't work in your sandbox. That's really the problem. So it stopped that, and then it did something else.
If we do this, then Maven compile is running in the sandbox. And it shouldn't. It should run into the same error.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It has the same compilation. It doesn't have the
different.
It doesn't have the correct Java version in your sandbox. Do you have Java 25 in the sandbox?
Okay. So shall we? How do we install that with Claude or with CLI command?
I have no idea.
So release version 25 is not supported.
Yeah.
Because we are using
Java 25.
And what version do we have? 21. Okay. So shall we just
that to 21? It works anyway.
Right.
And now we try to Maven compile again.
Actually, again, we should have an error now. Error prone on JDK 21. So
no, that's okay. Compilation.
This is
exactly the problem. Fatal error compiling is required on JDK. Okay. Now we have a huge problem. So we probably will not get away with 21, because error prone version is also using 25. But I have no clue how to install Java 25, because I thought this will use 25.
So, Simon, do you have that set up with your machine? Shall we try it on your machine?
I'm just looking at Docker sandboxes, how to check for Java versions. Agents, code. Install Java 25. Oh, that uses a. Oh, no, that's something else. I don't know. I have no clue because I don't use Docker sandboxes.
Yeah.
Because usually I do some demo on my machine and then it doesn't matter, or I run the Docker Cloud on a VM in the internet because I don't want to run it locally, or I have it in the pipeline. But probably it's because of the base Docker image. You have to talk with Kevin Wittek about that.
Yeah, I actually talked with him and had a session with him, but we did not talk about Java JDKs. But I think Claude will install it now.
Yeah, it does something.
Yeah, so again, we just see that it's running well. Okay. Still, so can we?
So the next step would be we just have a command /test, and this will /browserless test, not /test. This will create a browserless test for our application.
Okay, this is already built into your skill again.
Yeah, but what you can do in the meanwhile, we could make it work. So, what was the compilation error that you had before?
Yeah, exactly.
Non-null on meeting template there, passing non-null parameter description where non-null is required. Okay, then go to the meeting template DAO in here, yeah. And line 55 something, we have the description, nullable description. Go again to the error message because I thought it was on a different line. It's on line 55.
Oh, this one.
That's a different version. Try to compile it again because the numbers are not correct. It probably already fixed the problem.
So, okay, it installed JDK 25 and already tries to compile it, and then it probably saw that error.
Yeah, now it has an error because null away. Now it tries to fix that. Exactly, very good. I think it already fixed it. It's really a bit slow because compiling 52 classes, so it really has to, it's on 55. But it has the nullable annotation. Did it implement?
Is it the meeting template? Meeting template though?
Where non-null passing nullable parameter description when non-null is required.
So it's if this would be non-null,
that
would work.
Leave that and check what it imported. What's the nullable? Is that the JSpecify annotation? Go to the imports in the file.
Oh, okay. That's what you mean. Okay. Yeah.
That's the correct one. So it should work. But I think in the meanwhile, it already fixed it. You can go back to the sandbox.
Not sure. I think it's still running.
No, it did something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the problem. The problem is actually down there. And now it fixed it.
Okay. Here we go. And
now we can try to start it.
It's still trying to compile it here. Okay, build success.
Now it's worked. Now it's done.
Okay.
Now it's trying test, not compile, Maven test start or test run. Now we're just doing Maven compile.
Yeah. So Maven just test, or again the Spring?
No, the Spring Boot.
Spring Boot test run.
Yeah. And while this starts, you can go to the sandbox and clear the context. And now slash browserless. Now it's called browserless test.
Caribou. Okay.
Browserless test slash UC or browserless test UC001. Okay. Now it's leave that. The other one is not yet started.
I shouldn't have started it yet.
No, that's fine.
Oh,
that just
should be fine. Yeah.
Is it running already?
Yeah, it's running.
Now I can log in as admin, for example. And now we have the Besprechungsvorlagen.
Ooh.
And here we have, now the layout is a bit, we didn't talk about the layout, but you can create a template, and then you could probably also add Tagesordnungspunkte, so agenda items probably.
Yeah.
And try to do that. So add a title and just save it with the title without one. What does it say? Mindestens ein Tagesordnungspunkt verfügbar. Dann Intro. Save. How do we add that? There's a button on the left side, so you have to. Your screen is too small. Just yes, hinzufügen.
On the right side. Oh yeah. Okay.
And now speichern, and now you have our first meeting template. So this worked, finally.
Cool.
Now we didn't tell anything about how the UI should look like. We didn't tell anything about how we want to structure that. That's just because click on the Benutzer link on the left side in the menu. Benutzer.
Yeah.
It just took it from here. So as you can see, it copied kind of the layout of the application to that. Looks speichern, abbrechen, the table, it looks very similar because it took it from there.
Yeah, I see.
And if you click on the first meeting, we can see if we can edit that.
Nope.
That doesn't work. So we just implemented the use case create. We didn't implement the use case change.
Yeah.
So the next one will probably be edit template and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now this is working on the testing side because we now have Java 25. Probably we had issues with Java 25. That's also why it didn't work before.
Yeah.
Now we will see what will happen. And we can go back to the UI because to the code because we didn't review everything. We didn't had a look at the UI, so we can open the meeting template view. And there we see that we have rows allowed, so we don't have the correct rows, by the way. That's something that I see. We have a grid, we have a list item, bean, and then we can scroll down. So that's quite, what do we have here? We have things that's not so important. Because here we are looking for the username because we need that somehow. But interestingly, it is probably the create template grid and create template form method. So you can just scroll down. And here we have the grid, so we can review if the grid is created correctly. We have the columns, for example. It's sortable. It has a name. It has an auto width, and so on. And then we have a grid sorter, and that looks about. So we even have the correct set items method here on line 125 because this is doing lazy loading with that one. That's very good.
Oh yeah.
And if you go further down, you will see the input fields. It probably doesn't use a binder, so I'm very curious how it stores the data in the record because it doesn't use a binder. If you scroll down a bit more, so I'm already down. Form layout, set up grid items further down. These are the items. Down some more, and then we have some. We even have drag and drop.
Drag and drop, yeah.
Interesting. We didn't tell so, and yeah. So we really had to view that. This looks because of drag and drop, which is something that we don't need. Maybe, I don't know why we have drag and drop. Maybe the drag and drop is that we can move up and down, right? So we can maybe move the items up and down. That's probably this idea.
I would be interested in seeing the user view. User view. Does that have drag and drop?
No.
Huh. Interesting.
Can you go to the use case? I'm curious if we have something in the use case documentation.
In this one or general?
Here we have organizer repeat step, reorders agenda items by dragging items. Look at line 23.
Okay.
Implemented what we said, but we didn't review the use case.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right.
Very good. Now let's look at the test. It's still running. It really has an issue with Docker, in Docker. So the sandbox is not done yet. So it's not something that I would use. So that's kind of my opinion, because first of all, it runs very slow. I don't know if really the pro version is the problem. I don't think so, because I had other people in the workshop today also with the pro version, and they didn't tell me that it took so long. So I expect that the problem is really in the Docker sandbox.
Okay, well, I can try that outside the box as well at some point. Yeah. So it's still running. Well, if the tests are done, so at some point we want to deploy. So we are already over 2 hours, and this is taking just too long. What else is there to do? So we have the code. We reviewed the code. We have tests. We reviewed the tests in theory. So we can do the delivery, the deployment. Right?
Yeah, so you can just go into the project directory. Did you install the Fly CLI?
No.
You have to install the Fly CLI first.
I think that's
That's that one. So you don't have Brew, so you have to install it on Windows with that one. Yeah.
No. Okay.
Very good. Now we can just run fly control or fly CTL, probably you have to use. Launch. So space launch or launch.
Yeah.
And enter. That's it. So we fly control is not. Probably that's not in the past. So you may have to copy everything. But we are missing something already. We don't have a Docker file. We need a Docker file first.
Sorry, you were gone for a second. So we don't have a Docker file yet.
We need a Docker file in the project.
Yes.
Directly.
Will we create this with AI?
No, we just do that manually. So just go into Visual Studio Code and create a Docker file, and then I can tell you what to write. So I don't have
really by hand.
Yeah, just create a Docker file. And now let's go to, let's search for Docker file for Spring. That's good enough. Yeah, take that one, maybe. Do we really have go down Docker files, Docker file? I don't want to do that. I don't want to have this one go down a bit because we don't need that. That's too much. Go back. We need a very simple one because Fly doesn't use Docker. It just uses Docker to build an image and extract that. So that doesn't make sense to have such a Docker file. Maybe this one, yeah, the guide. Go down, there we find the Docker file. This one, just take that. So yes. And then we have 25, not 17, and that's it. So that's good enough. Now you have to go to the command line and we need to run something. We need to run Maven package first. So, because Maven package will do a production build for Maven. Is it done already?
No.
It runs the test, but at least it runs the tests already. So just do Maven package. It probably doesn't interrupt the load.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the tests run, otherwise you have to run it with skip tests.
Oh yeah.
But you really should try that outside of the sandbox. I'm very curious how long it takes there.
Yeah.
And then you can go to Kevin and say, hey, you have
Fix
to
your
work
stuff.
a bit on that.
Yeah. Ricardo says, well, this is old school programming. Yeah. Okay. Running. Oh yeah.
We do that just for the first time here, but because if you run fly control launch, it will create everything you need for the CI pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Why we want to do that locally. Yes. We have a test failure. So you can run it with skip tests.
It's just skip tests,
No,
right?
no, not like that. Maybe that works as well. I don't know. No, that doesn't work. It's -d, minus big D, skip tests in one word. So with the large or with an upper T, like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, go back to the page where you've been before with the sandboxes.
This one.
What does it, because it maybe blocks something. So for example, it blocks Maven Vaadin for some reason. That's probably not a good idea. It blocks my MCP service. So we didn't have a look at that. So that's probably also a reason. So it constantly tries to hit the MCP service and the Maven Vaadin and the Vaadin thing.
The Datadog, I don't know. I wouldn't want to allow this.
Used for, but the MCP Vaadin should be allowed. So we in fact, we run it without access to MCP servers. That was a very bad. We didn't have to pay attention on that.
Yeah, I didn't think of this. Yeah. Okay. We don't need this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
and
there are
probably Cloud Code run into timeouts all the time.
Yeah.
That's why it took so long.
Okay. So it was a user mistake.
Exactly, as usual.
As usual. Okay.
Okay, now go
let's
back
see.
to the console and we run fly control. So we
I forget the path, and it's too far gone now. Oh no.
yeah, it's in the user home, so you will find it. So you can write C exactly your user home, whatever.
Yeah,
users,
yeah.
I think it's users.
Is it? Then yeah, okay.
And
Then,
.fly, I think it's a .fly or something. No.
Okay.
Or in.
Okay. But we want this one, and
both,
then we want
I
to
think
launch.
that's both the same. Yeah, fly control launch.
Oh yeah.
I must log in. Let's say yes.
Oh, that's probably not.
It's
great
opening
to
a
show.
browser somewhere.
Yeah.
It's successfully logged in.
Mm-hmm.
Spec-Driven Development already exists. We want to deploy this. We already have that. So we can stop it, say no.
Okay.
And instead of launch, you just do deploy. Okay, that doesn't work. Now you should delete the application that we already have. Or no, just do it again. So do fly control launch.
And then replace.
Yes. Region is not go into fly. It's maybe we should do that another time because now we have to delete the application and redo that. We were not very well prepared as it looks like.
Well, we did a lot of talking about the actual AI
process. Yeah,
unified
we probably
process.
had our agenda was too big. So if we had used our workshop and meeting manage, we would see that this will not fit.
Yeah.
But we can try it.
Exactly.
Just give it a try. Delete the application on fly.
Yeah. All right. Here we are. Got that application. No. And
now it's on settings.
Where is it? Here we are.
And now somewhere you can delete it.
No, delete app. Right. Yeah. Oh. Yes.
And now we can try to launch it again.
So launch, because it's deleted now. But it still needs that configure file, doesn't it? Because that's what it.
No, it creates that if you use.
Okay.
But
so shall we just try that?
Try this fly platform region.
Yeah. Platform regions.
And now, do you have to select one? How can we do it?
Just lists them.
Yeah, we have Frankfurt. I have no clue.
Me neither.
You need to have documentation and check that out how it works. So we probably can't do that.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. So we won't deploy the application today. Maybe another time. It would be nice to have this finally.
Yeah, that's insane, the time it takes. I mean, the tests are usually faster than the implementation. So probably something still blocks. And I assume it has timeouts all the time.
So this is still blocked, but
it doesn't have so many hits.
Network rules. Yeah. But okay, let's just kind of wrap this up because in general, this is clear what it does. It creates tests, and we have to review it, right?
Exactly.
That's basically it. And that's also according to this plan, which is like, which is a big plan that you really have to know and kind of follow to work in that process. But I guess it makes sense, and it sounds like how do you say that? Like a good plan for long-running software, where you change a lot of stuff, and you basically not change the code at all, but you adjust the specifications for it, and that way you have a shared understanding, and then the AI can actually implement. You only have to review the code and the tests.
Exactly.
Okay, we have one question from F Jenny. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
The UI design is, you can use whatever you like. So if you don't have anything, I would really use Figma, because Figma has an MCP server. That means you can use Claude Code to create the Figma design, adjust the Figma design in Figma, and then you tell Claude which Figma design it should use for the implementation. For my customers, we have a design system. So that means we have components and all the things that we need, really. And then we can just, for example, we have different layouts in the ERP system that we are doing for a wholesale company. And there we define in the use case which layout it should use. And the components then come by its own. So we also have skills for the design system that AI knows which components to use and how to use that.
All right. So and maybe to note this again, the AI Up core is another set of skills that is included in this AI Up Vaadin JOOQ skill set. But the core is not specified on the implementation. It's not specified on Java or on Spring, on Vaadin, on JOOQ, on any of this.
Yeah.
This is just for the basically specification part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you can use that for any programming language you want.
Yeah, and currently I did workshops with that for React and Next.js, for example. So there I'm currently working on skill or on skills. And in the next few weeks, I will have a .NET workshop.
Yeah.
And the outcome will hopefully get into a .NET plugin for the AI app. So somehow maybe we will have more plugins for more tech stacks. But if you want to use it, you should create your own tech stack skills, because the skills are really the thing that you, depending on your architecture, on your application style, on your programming conventions, should create. So that's the thing that's very important. So create your own skills for the implementation part.
Yeah. So like this, for example, implement, that will be a important skill that you don't have to tell the AI implement this in Java with Spring Boot. No idea what kind of technology you're using with Hibernate.
Yep.
You want to have that in your skill ready to go, and because you will use this a lot every time you create a new use case, you want to implement that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we covered a lot. We took a lot of time, but for me, I really have. I feel like I have a good understanding of this whole unified process now, of this AI unified process. And I mean, we implemented quite a lot in. It didn't work out that well in the end, but that's absolutely fine. The core issue was to show this process and how this thing works with the skill and Claude Code. And yeah, I think we covered that quite well.
Yeah. So maybe I can, there's a project that for the people that like to see it in action as well, because what I did is I did a reverse engineering. There's also a reverse engineering skill, by the way. That's very new.
Yeah.
Because I use that mostly for brownfield projects. So modernization projects, we do reverse engineering of the use case based on the code, on documentation, on database things. And I reverse engineered the Spring Pet Clinic. So Spring Pet Clinic is kind of the showcase project for Spring framework.
Yeah.
And I reverse engineered that in entity model and use case specifications. And from that, I generated the application with Vaadin and JOOQ. And generating the application, including the tests, took half an hour.
All right.
So that's the regular amount of time it takes.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, I really have to look into this because I'm not sure what's the issue here. But I'll find out.
Share that you can have it here. I can put it in the comments, I would say.
You can put it in the private chat and I'll put it in the comments so every platform will.
That's it.
Get this.
That's Pet Clinic. That's like a clone of Pet Clinic, and you can look at it there. So everything that you find there is AI generated.
All right. Cool. All right. So Simon, thank you very much for showing us all this stuff. It's really interesting. I think that's one step in the right direction, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it democratizes the software development, I would say. So I'm really working with a very small company that couldn't afford software before. So they have software, but standard software that doesn't fit their business needs.
Yeah.
And now we can create software with that approach where they can steer the software engineering part or the requirements part, not the engineering part, because I'm responsible for the software engineering and the architecture and the operations and support and everything. But I don't have to spend time on that project somehow.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting experiment, and we hope to be done by during this summer. And they will do then beta testing for a while and switch to that new ERP system by 1st of January next year because of the books. So they have to have a year end. So they don't want to do that during the year. And if that works, probably a lot of more companies can get individual software that are tailor-made for them and no longer rely on standard software that probably is expensive, outdated, and not fitting their business processes.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so again, thank you very much, and thank you, viewers, for the questions, for the comments, and I'll hopefully see you again. Simon, any last words?
No, thanks a lot for having me. It was great to see someone else using my project live and my process live. That was quite interesting. And sometime we will deploy it on Fly.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.